South of South Korea. It's around 9:40 a.m. on a Wednesday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. We are about to see the ASEAN leaders of the Mekong region, namely Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar, being greeted by South Korean President Moon Jae-in at the city's Bexco Convention Center before they start their summit. They are about to start filtering in via their limos and convoys at any moment now. Once they do, we'll cut to live video feed from Busan to bring you that. Once the leaders are settled in, we are likely to hear a short opening speech from President Moon, and we'll bring you a live English translation of what he has to say at the start of this inaugural MEKONG-KOREA Summit. There have been three ASEAN-Korea summits so far, but this is the first between South Korea and the Mekong countries specifically. Joining me in the studio this morning are Dr. Kim Sang-woo, who is chairman of the East Asia Cultural Project. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor.
Great to be here.
And our Unification Ministry correspondent, Jung-hee, is back in the studio. Thank you, Jung-hee, for joining us.
Good morning.
We'll be talking about what to expect and the relationship between the two sides, and we are looking forward to hearing both of their insights. So this is the third and final day of what has been a busy few days of diplomatic activity in Busan, so we look forward to seeing what kind of results come out of this summit. We expect the leaders to arrive thick and fast pretty soon, with the Prime Minister of Thailand scheduled to arrive first, and the final arrival said to be the State Councillor of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the only female leader at this summit. So this last few days has been critical to building on President Moon's signature New Southern Policy, which he's been working on tirelessly since coming to office around 2.5 years ago. We're looking at live pictures from the summit venue there. This summit will give the South Korean leader an opportunity to shore up relations with this increasingly important subdivision, if you will, of ASEAN. But before we go over to Busan, I'd like to turn to Dr. Kim first for your thoughts about the significance of this Korea Mekong Summit, the first of its kind.
The first of its kind for Korea and the Mekong region, yes.
Yeah.
But already the summit is going on between China and the Mekong region, as well as US and Japan. So in a way, we are a bit late, but surely we have an advantage in terms of the other countries, because these other countries are great powers, superpowers, which has an upper hand in the sense that they can dominate the situation, whereas Korea is more of an equal partner to precede by the Mekong region countries, I would say.
Right. And Jung-hee, if you can just give us a brief introduction of what the Mekong region actually is. I gave a list of the countries, but why is it so important to countries like South Korea, China, the US and Japan?
Right, so Mekong itself is a transboundary river that's 4,900 kilometers long. It starts from Tibet and China and flows into the South China Sea. So these five countries, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, they are the countries surrounding the Mekong River, and they have been actually spearing the economic growth of the Southeast Asian part of the world. Their average annual growth has been from 6 to 7%, and it has a total population of 240 million people, with a large proportion of young workers, and that's why we call this region a very young and dynamic part, the region of the Southeast Asian continent. And these countries are also abundant in timber, mineral and sources for hydropower, and that's why there are various areas where South Korea could cooperate with these countries.
Okay, and Dr. Kim, you mentioned that South Korea is kind of playing catch-up with the rest of the major world powers who all have their eyes on this specific region. Do you think summits like this can help South Korea hustle its way towards the front of the queue in some degree? I mean, China has an awful lot of sway over these countries, correct?
Yes, China has a lot of sway, but it actually, the Mekong region countries feels threatened by China, because
Right.
China is basically using the Mekong River, the water resources, by building hydraulic dams, and they are controlling the water flow and the waterways. So in a way, China, although it is also using a carrot and stick policy by providing development projects, spending millions of dollars, but at the same time, it is still a very threatening neighbor. And it can actually dominate and dictate the situation among these countries. But Korea, the emphasis of Korea's bilateral relationship with the Mekong region countries is that they will share, and it's called prosperity. So it's a mutually win-win kind of approach. I think in that sense, the Mekong region countries will be very welcoming this initiative by Korea.
Right, so essentially what you're saying is China is to some degree strong-arming these countries because of the control over the tap, essentially, because it's building all these dams along the river that supplies all the water to these nations who desperately need it because they aren't generally the most developed of societies either. They need a lot of help in that regard. Jung-hee, turning to you, we're still awaiting the leaders to arrive. We were expecting them around 5 minutes ago, but we'll hang on tightly for that. I'm sure you're all excited to see them filter in. But Jung-hee, this might be the first South Korea Mekong summit there has been, but as Dr. Kim pointed out, there has been a lot of cooperation going on over the years. Can you talk us through what kind of dialogue we've been seeing between the two sides in the past several years? Okay, well, we're just looking at the Prime Minister of Thailand, who's just pulling up Prayut Chan-o-cha, former general. You could say he's still a general in Thailand, of course. Thailand is the biggest economy in the Mekong region. It has a GDP of over 500 billion US dollars. It also has the largest population as well. So,
yes, and Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha will be delivering today's MEKONG-KOREA joint statement later on because he is representing the ASEAN as the leader of this year's ASEAN chair.
Okay, next up, I believe, will be the Prime Minister of Vietnam will be coming in shortly. We are expecting about a 1-minute interval between the leaders' arrivals, so there's not much we can really discuss in depth while the leaders filter in. Dr. Kim, quickly though, since I mentioned that Thailand has such a large economy in comparison to most of the other Mekong region countries, do you think there's any kind of priority in President Moon's mind in regards to who he wants to woo the most over the course of today?
Well, as you said, the 5 countries within the Mekong region differs in terms of economic development, level of economic development and development itself. So Thailand is a country that Korea is very much, as you say, wooing in terms of trying to establish more economic ties.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, Vietnam is the largest economic partner within the region for Korea.
Yeah.
So I think in the other sense, Thailand is also very interested in cooperating with Korea in the area of high tech,
Yeah.
ICT, AI, autonomous cars. So they want that area rather than, but whereas the other less developed countries like Laos or Cambodia, Myanmar wants Korea to help them in developing their agriculture as well as other, the fourth industrial areas as well.
So Thailand and Vietnam are kind of in a subsection of their own. What we're seeing now is the Vietnamese delegation, Laos, shall I say, that is the Laotian flag, pardon me, pulling up. This is the smallest population and smallest GDP out of all the Mekong nations. There is the Prime Minister, Thongloun Sisouleth, pulling in.
The Laotian Prime Minister Thongloun Sisouleth had a summit with South Korean President Moon Jae-in yesterday. and he thanked Korea for its development assistance that's to be provided for the years 2020 to 2023.
So, Dr. Kim, do you think countries like Laos then, considering their economy is rather small in many respects, they aren't looking at the high-tech aspects of what South Korea can offer so much more, they're looking at it, what kind of financial development assistance can they receive from Seoul?
I think what Laos and the Mekong region is looking for, firstly, is to develop its agricultural base. The experience that Korea has through the Semaur movement is not just agricultural development, but it's a can-do spirit of positive thinking and saying that they can succeed in their goals to become economically vibrant.
Okay, we're looking at the Prime Minister of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Nguyen Xuan Phuc, who is making his way in. I mentioned before Thailand had the largest population. I was incorrect when I said that. It's actually Vietnam has a population of over 96 million people live in that country. And Jung-hee, a large proportion of those people as well are young people. So there's a very large labor force that can contribute to their economy, but also South Korea's.
That is. Vietnam, and thanks to that, has developed into a global production hub in Southeast Asian part of the world. And Prime Minister, I should add this, Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc will be sitting down for a separate bilateral summit with President Moon Jae-in later in the day, and of course the dinner banquet that comes after that. And here we see another convoy making entrance into the Nurimaru APEC Center in Busan. We're seeing Deputy Prime Minister of Cambodia.
Yes, the Deputy Prime Minister is there representing Cambodia today. The Prime Minister of Cambodia, unfortunately due to a family issue, wasn't able to make it to Busan this week, but they will enjoy a good conversation. I'm sure Cambodia as well, one of the smaller economies in the region, a GDP of around $25 billion a year, which if you compare it to Thailand, which is over $500 billion, you can see how they are absolutely dwarfed by a country like Thailand. And particularly Korea, goes without saying, has a huge GDP as well and can provide much experience in terms of what it can offer in terms of technology, financial assistance, and also people-to-people exchanges and things like that. Dr. Kim, while we await the next delegation to come in, a number of these Mekong nations have their roots in socialism, and North Korea, in name anyway, is a socialist state as well. Do you think this gives them a better chance than other countries as acting as a bridge between South Korea and the US for the denuclearization and peace process on the Korean peninsula? Essentially, will North Korea listen to them more than they might do to other nations?
I don't know whether North Korea listens to anyone.
Right.
But when you think about it, I mean, Vietnam is a possible candidate if North Korea is willing to open up its economy and start to become a normal country in the sense. Maybe Vietnam can be a kind of a model, partially, not entirely, because there is vast differences as well. Yeah. But because Vietnam is so successful, although it's a socialist state, as you say, in terms of economic development, and the reason for that is because that Vietnam is actually following the model of Korea, South Korea's development in many ways, and also China. Yeah,
it's doing very well as well. And we must note that Vietnam was the host nation for the second North Korea US summit in Hanoi back in February, and potentially could be a contender if there's a third North Korea US summit. We have heard from the North Koreans that they only want to negotiate with the United States and President Trump in particular. They want to get right to the very top when it comes to negotiations. That's where they think they can get some concessions out of Washington. So like Dr. Kim said, that they don't really listen to anyone. They do their own thing, but they might listen to President Trump at least, considering Kim Jong-un and President Trump are pen pals of sorts. So we are awaiting the remaining delegations to come through. But Jung-hee, I'm going to turn back to you. You have something to chime in here.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and introduce to our viewers where the summit is being held today. It's called Nurimaru APEC House.
Yeah.
It's in Busan, and just to explain to our viewers, Nuri means world and Maru means summit. So Nurimaru is a place where a summit is to take place. And APEC House, APEC definitely stands for Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So this is the venue where 21 APEC member states actually came together for an APEC leaders meeting in the year 2005, and this venue has a high-tech conference system as well as and it's designed with a unique beauty of Korean traditional architecture. So this place, Nurimaru APEC House, is the place where the leaders of South Korea and 5 Mekong River nations will be gathering together for their first ever summit together.
Okay, so the summits we saw yesterday were taking place at Mexico, but this is taking place at a different and I must say picturesque venue as well, as we see the next set of limousines making their way toward and this is Myanmar, led by State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. She is the only female at this summit, former Nobel Peace Prize winner, but the shine has kind of come off her reputation globally due to Myanmar's treatment of the Rohingya Muslims, but still an important partner potentially for South Korea. And so Jung-hee, just fill us in a bit more about Myanmar.
Yes, Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi also sat down for a bilateral summit with President Moon Jae-in yesterday on the sidelines of the ASEAN-Korea commemorative summit. And there she said she hopes the young generations of the two countries could go together. But what she highlighted was that Myanmar will do everything it can in setting peace on the Korean peninsula. So that was one part where President Moon and South Korea could welcome very much.
Okay, well, the leaders are about to prepare for a group photo, as seems to be the custom at these kind of events. In the meantime, I'll bring Dr. Kim back into the conversation. How do you see relations evolving between South Korea and these nations in the years to come?
I think Korea, in this changing international environment where the traditional countries, 4 countries that Korea had diplomatic ties, placed high priority on these 4 countries, is now in a very difficult diplomatic relation. With US, we have a fundamental question about our alliance.
Yeah.
With China, they still have that remaining sort of vengeance on the THAAD situation, and still we are suffering in terms of economic relations. Japan, as you know, we have historical, economic, and even security issues. Russia seems to be far away from everything. We're not actually communicating or relating to them as much as before. ASEAN is, I think, the natural alternative in the sense that the 10 countries, although different in terms of their development level and race and language and culture and all this, but nevertheless they have maintained more than 50 years of this network due to their need to group together against protecting themselves against the so-called threats of the big powers.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that then, but would it be in any way a similar replacement if trade with the United States, with China and Japan goes down and are replaced by these ASEAN countries, which, let's just be honest, have much, much smaller economies? Do you think then what kind of state would that leave the South Korean economy in if its dependency swings from the main powers, as they're called here in South Korea, the US, Japan, China, and whatnot, to the smaller nations in Southeast Asia who the populations have less money to spend generally, they're less developed? Can't you see that potentially being a problem down the line if that were to become a reality?
No. Yes, partly right, what you're saying, but at the same time, although economic relationship is the most important among other relationships, of course, but having said that, political issues are also very important because Korea is situated in Northeast Asia where we're surrounded by the big powers. And in case of conflict or differences, it's very difficult for Korea to stand alone against these countries.
Yeah.
It needs friends. It needs neighbors that have similar needs and similar requirements.
Yeah.
So ASEAN is very good in the sense that we have the same kind of the middle power kind of countries. But as you said, the 10 countries are all different in terms of population, in terms of economic level and all that. But as a combined force, as an
Still
ASEAN,
huge, yeah.
is a huge potential. And we have so much to offer the ASEAN as well.
Yeah.
Not just one-sided, it can be sort of bilateral, where we're two-way.
And quickly, before I turn back to our Unification Ministry correspondent, Jung-hee, in regards to what we've seen over the past couple of days, do you think the summits thus far have really shored up the relationship between South Korea and ASEAN?
It's an emphasis by the part of the Korean government and President Moon in particular, saying that ASEAN is important and we will elevate the importance to the level of the main 4 countries that Korea puts priority on the same basis.
Yeah.
So that means that, of course, this is the beginning, a statement made publicly. Now what is needed is to implement and to realize that. So the devil is in the detail. Now, how do we build trust and mutual respect? Trust is, I think, the most important. The ASEAN countries and the most less developed countries like Laos or Cambodia are very much influenced by China's big money and Japan's big money. So they sometimes, even within the context of ASEAN, takes a different voice at sometimes supporting China in cases of some incidents. So this is the area that we need to overcome as well. They should not be swayed just by money. So
Right.
building trust.
Trust is very important, be it personal or geopolitical. And it's fair to say that President Moon seems like a very trustworthy fellow indeed, and he's certainly eager to put on a good show and show how much South Korea can and wants to win their trust. Jung-hee, last night there was a big banquet held by President Moon in honor of the leaders of the Mekong countries. He gave a speech, as you would expect. Can you tell us a bit more about what he had to say?
Well, before I answer your question, I think we should look at the picture coming in right now.
Yeah, so we're about to have a group photo. President Moon's pointing out the photo. Not the photo, the picture in the background in the traditional Korean style there. So they might have a bit of a brief conversation while they prepare for the group photo. But quickly, while we wait for that, Jung-hee, then, can you tell us a bit more about what President Moon had to say at last night's banquet.
Yeah, sure. President Moon and the leaders of 5 Mekong nations sat down together for a dinner banquet last night. And there, President Moon actually stressed that South Koreans feel very close and comfortable towards these Southeast Asian countries at the Mekong region. And he expressed how South Korea He stressed that South Korea is sharing its development assistance and expertise. He stressed how, you know how South Korea is well known for its miracle of the Han River, and he said that South Korea could do its best to achieve the miracle of the Mekong River. He also added that Mekong countries are very much important partners in terms of achieving peace on the Korean Peninsula. If North Korea achieves its denuclearization, then Mekong countries will be the most helpful in bringing them out to the international community.
Okay, so we're looking at the group photograph now before the leaders head in and get on with their first ever summit of this type. It's going to be an interesting day for sure. We'll hear the results of their conversation later in the day. It goes without saying that we'll be bringing you all the details of that later here on Arirang TV. So President Moon is ushering in his foreign guests into the summit venue. We are expecting President Moon to speak very shortly, giving an opening speech before they close the doors for good, so they can get down and have private conversations on issues of mutual importance. South Korea is pressing home the need for the sides to work together, like Dr. Kim said, to build trust, but also co-prosperity and peace in the region. Asia, of course, in different areas has been ravaged by wars over the past decades, and no one wants to see that happen again. But let's listen in as President Moon is about to speak.
Shall we begin?
우리 메콩 정상님들
Distinguished leaders of Mekong River nations, it's great to see you again.
정말 역사적인
And I think we are here at a very historic moment, holding the first ever MEKONG-KOREA
존경하는
Summit.
메콩 정상 여러분.
Distinguished leaders of Mekong River nations, I'm ever more delighted that we hold the first ever Mekong ROK Summit this year, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the establishment of dialogue relations between ASEAN and Republic of Korea. I extend my sincere gratitude to Prime Minister Prayut for his efforts as co-chair of the Mekong ROK Summit. My special thanks also go to Prime Minister Hun Sen for proposing the summit, even though he couldn't be here himself. I also thank all the leaders for your attendance. Mekong River is the mother of rivers. It is the basis for many species and people. Cambodia's Tonle Sap Lake flows towards Vietnam's Mekong Delta, yielding rice and supporting the hydropower generation of Laos. Since long, Mekong countries have lived in harmony and embracement, just like the Mekong River itself. Mekong region has become a land of opportunity. Mekong cooperation has begun with the opening of the region in the 1980s and is transforming the lives of many people. Korea's dream of pursuing co-prosperity of the continent and the sea as a bridging country also met with the dynamics of Mekong a long time ago. Korea, a nation that has established a relation of co-prosperity with ASEAN to prepare for an era of the Asia-Pacific, has become Mekong's special friend. The dream of ASEAN and Mekong to develop into an integrated community by bridging the development gap among countries is indeed the dream of the Republic of Korea. Trade volume between Korea and Mekong jumped 2.4 times in just 8 years, posting $84.5 billion last year. Investment stood at $3.8, jumping 1.7 folds. People-to-people exchange also jumped 3-fold, standing at 7 million. Mekong has become Korea's core development cooperation partner by contributing over 20% of the nation's ODA funds. With the adoption of the Han River Declaration in 2011, we expanded the scope of cooperation to include water resource management, ICT, and energy. We established the Mekong-ROK Cooperation Fund and hold the annual business forum, deepening our relationship. Mekong countries achieve high growth rates of over 6% annually, achieving sustainable development by enabling harmony between people and nature. It is also making a new order of Asian spirit, valuing sharing and mutual respect. It was the center connecting the Yellow River Civilization and the Indus Civilization, and the pride of Angkor Wat, Bagan, and Wapu, and the history of seaborne trade of kingdoms of Ayutthaya and Changpa have become revived to signal a new beginning of an era of new prosperity. When Korea joins hands with the dynamics of the Mekong, I believe the miracle on the Han River can lead to the miracle on the Mekong River. We will always stand by the Mekong regions. Thank you very much.
다음으로 올해 아시안 여장부기자
next,
이번 또 한메콩
I would
정상회의
like to
공동장
invite
맡고 계신
Prime Minister Prayut, the co-chair of the First Mekong Republic of Korea Summit.
His Excellency Mr. Moon Jae-in, President of the ROK, Mr. Thongloun Sisulit, Prime Minister of the Lao PDR, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, State Councillor of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar, His Excellency Mr. Nguyen Chuan Phuc, His Excellency Prak Sokhonn, Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Sawasdee krap. I wish to extend a warm welcome to all distinguished delegates to the first MEKONG-ROK Summit today. It is indeed my great pleasure to co-host this summit with His Excellency President Moon. And I would like to thank you for the delightful dinner last night. Today's meeting is a historic meeting as it elevates our MEKONG-ROK cooperation to the highest level. This demonstrates the importance that the ROK is giving to the Mekong sub-region under President Moon's new Southern policy. On the occasion of Thailand's co-chairmanship of MEKONG-ROK cooperation, we have co-hosted a series of meetings in Bangkok, including the senior officials meeting, the foreign ministers meeting, and the MEKONG-ROK Business Forum in the lead up to today's summit. This summit will provide us with an opportunity to review the progress of cooperation under the Han River Declaration of establishing the MEKONG-ROK Comprehensive Partnership for Mutual Prosperity of 2011 and subsequent action plans. And we can deliberate on future directions through reprioritization of our sectors of cooperation in accordance with the 3P of the ROK's new Southern policy, which focuses on people, prosperity, and peace, in order to tackle ongoing global challenges. Excellencies, our cooperation has unique, progress-driven characteristics and focuses on policy synchronization. Last year, the Mekong sub-region adopted its first-ever action plan, which is the ACMEX Master Plan, which emphasizes connectivity. This year, the ROK became a development partner of ACMEX and has launched the new Southern policy to promote closer cooperation with ASEAN, and especially the ACMEX countries. Such policy alignment through the ACMEX Master Plan and the ROK's new Southern policy is a vivid reflection of our convergence. And in this process, I believe that Thailand, as a co-development partner of the ROK and host country of the Mekong Institute, will be able to play a significant role in enhancing our cooperation in a seamless manner. Our MEKONG-ROK cooperation is one of the most dynamic sub-regional cooperation frameworks. We have systematic cooperation mechanisms through various frameworks, such as, first, an established action plan, which is reviewed every 5 years, 2, mechanism funding through the MEKONG-ROK Cooperation Fund, and thirdly, the Mekong Institute, as a dedicated institution to drive cooperation in diverse areas. We have tangible goals that address current challenges and attaches importance to promoting cooperation with other regional frameworks. On behalf of the Thai government, it is my honor and pleasure to work with the government of President Moon to further our third country partnership. And I look forward to implementing projects for the continued development of the Mekong sub-region. Today's summit is very important on two fronts. Symbolically, we have marked the elevation of our cooperation to its highest level as we enter the second decade of cooperation in 2021. And substantively, our summit will build on the achievements of the third ASEAN-ROK commemorative summit and related meetings of the past 2 days, and will further widen and deepen the foundation of cooperation between Mekong and the ROK. I would like to express my appreciation to the ROK for drafting the Mekong-Han River Declaration for establishing partnership for people, peace, and prosperity as the outcome document of today's summit. I would also like to thank the senior officials and relevant agencies of the member countries for their close coordination in the drafting process. The declaration to be adopted shortly will be an important document that lays the foundation for our cooperation. I'm certain that today's summit will be successful and we will utilize the visions to further drive our cooperation under an action plan that truly meets the needs of our peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Prime Minister Prayut. He stressed the history of the Mekong and ROK cooperation, as well as he touched upon the future goals as well. Thank you very much once again. And now we will have the closed-door meeting.
Well, they're kicking out the cameras now and they're getting down to business. We heard President Moon Jae-in speak for around 5 minutes. He gave a short opening speech, talked about the importance of the Mekong River and how people's lives in the region have been improving ever since the 1980s. He said South Korea and the 5 nations have become special friends over the years. There's a focus on water management, ICT and energy, sustainable growth as well as natural respect. In other words, trust. We also heard from Thailand's Prime Minister as well. He had some very kind words to say about South Korea. And the host, President Moon Jae-in, bringing back in our Unification Ministry correspondent, Jung-hee. And then we'll also bring Dr. Kim back into the conversation as well. Anything of interest that jumped out at you from what President Moon had to say in that short opening speech there?
Well, the key idea of President Moon's speech was co-prosperity. He stressed that South Korea aims to achieve mutual prosperity with ASEAN countries, and this means that Korea recognizes the importance of bridging the development gap with Southeast Asian countries, especially the countries near the Mekong River. He stressed that Korea is a core development cooperation partner for Mekong nations. So I just want to bring in the priority areas of cooperation between South Korea and Mekong countries. They're working together in infrastructure, ICT, green growth, water resource management, rural development, and human resources development. And these two sides are both running a cooperation fund together where South Korea is increasing its contribution year by year. So in 2018, South Korea contributed $1 million US in 2018, but that increased to 2 million, and South Korea plans to up that even more to 3 million by 2020. So we can see that South Korea is evolving itself to a core development cooperation partner for Mekong countries. So I just want to say the Mekong countries and South Korea, the two sides, have been continuing their high-level dialogue since 2011. The foreign ministers of these countries have been meeting continuously every year since 2011, but this is the first time the leaders of these countries are meeting together. This is the first ever MEKONG-KOREA Summit, and this will be the venue where the 6 countries will be taking their relations to another high level together.
Okay, as we can see from the pictures there, we're looking at footage we just watched. And I'm going to bring Dr. Kim, the chairman of the East Asia Cultural Project, back into the conversation. We're looking at President Moon there. He's slightly over halfway through his 5-year term. South Korean presidents are constitutionally only allowed to serve one single term as it currently stands. How do you rate the success or otherwise of President Moon's signature new Southern policy towards ASEAN thus far? And do you think there are any improvements that could be made upon it?
I think it's a timely initiative in the sense that, as I said before, the international environment is becoming very rapidly changing into a direction that no one is certain how it's going to come about.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think the emphasis, placing the ASEAN countries, the importance of ASEAN countries on the level of the other 4 main countries that Korea puts priority on, is in itself a very important step in the right direction, because ASEAN is not, for Korea, is not threatening, and vice versa. I mean, ASEANs do not feel threatened by Korea as well. Korea has no hegemonic ambition towards like China or US or other countries. So in that sense, I think that it can be a good partnership, but we need tangible results. All the ideas and proposals are very grand and very noble and idealistic, but if we do not see tangible results from these initiatives, then the relationship may not be as close or grow as quickly as we would like to see.
Well as that, there is a lot of people-to-people exchanges going on between the two sides as well. Tens of thousands of students from those countries study in South Korea, and many South Koreans also study in those countries. So there is this bridge growing between the two sides, and also plenty of South Koreans take their vacation in the ASEAN countries, and a great many of people from ASEAN come to South Korea on vacation as well. So it really is a soft power in the region. It's soft diplomacy rather than the hard line some other countries might be taking. In regards to what we can expect next then, Jung-hee, we are hearing that there will be some kind of media conference in the coming hour and a half or so.
That's right. The MEKONG-KOREA Summit started just a few minutes ago, and there will be a joint media conference for this first ever MEKONG-KOREA Summit. It's going to take place at 11:40 at Nurimaru APEC House in Busan. The press statement is going to be delivered by South Korean President Moon and Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. And after this media conference, South Korean President Moon will be heading to Seoul straight away in the afternoon. And there at the presidential office of Cheongwade, he's going to sit down for another separate bilateral one-on-one summit with Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Xuyen Phuc, and they will also be sitting down for a dinner banquet as well, and several MOUs will be signed between South Korea and Vietnam in the day.
Okay, so essentially once the media conference is over, this period of the ASEAN-Korea summits will be officially over, and then there'll be one more meeting back in Seoul with one of the leaders there as well. We have been bringing you coverage of the first MEKONG-KOREA Summit to ever take place. It's happening down south in Busan. President Moon Jae-in is hosting 5 leaders, the leaders of Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. It's a momentous day, a historic day for South Korea and those nations as well. Bringing back Dr. Kim to get a bit more analysis out of him. What do you think the Mekong nations themselves think of President Moon's new Southern policy? Do you think that's something they're very open to themselves?
I think there's great expectation, of course, but as I said, if they do not see tangible results which benefits them and what they hope for, then they could change as well. Their attitude can change. But for the time being, I think the emphasis and the level of effort that President Moon is putting into this initiative, I think the countries are accommodating, and they're waiting to see the implementation process and how it will develop and bring about results. At the end of the day, what these least developed countries within the Mekong region is expecting is development aid, shared experiences for development in terms of agriculture as well as industrial basis. So Korea has that experience. I mean, Korea is a country that came from the most poorest country to almost one of the advanced countries in the world in a generation. So that experience in itself is something that these countries would like to share or to be able to learn from. But at the same time, as I said, the awareness and the interest on the part of average Koreans for the ASEAN country region and the people of ASEAN or the culture of ASEAN is not as great as it is on the part of the ASEAN countries. So we need to raise the awareness of Korean people of the importance and the significance of these ASEAN countries. So there needs to be more of an educational and also building interest.
Yeah. Okay, so it's about building public awareness of the importance of ASEAN as a region to the South Korean economy. The South Korean economy is going through a bit of a turbulent time as we speak, and also, like you say, like you touched upon, South Korea used to be one of the poorest nations in the entire world back in the 1950s, rising out of the ashes of the Korean War to become a real global economic powerhouse. Thank you very much for your insights today, Dr. Kim Sang-woo, Chairman of the Asia Pacific Cultural Project. We appreciate it very much. And Jung-hee, our Unification Ministry correspondent. It's a pleasure, as always, to have you in the studio. Thank you.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Now, we will have more news from the summit for you. That's going to be coming up at 11:40 a.m. Korea time with our very own Moon Gon-yong. We should have coverage of that media conference that's going to happen between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and the Prime Minister of Thailand. So we'll hear the results of the fruits of their labor, we hope. Until next time, goodbye.